amount of advice from agents and studio people, but maybe we can hear something about that. I think it's a terrific move that Steve made, and I'm very, very pleased that we've been able to get the film down here and that Steve has come down to chat about it. And I would just like to start off by asking Steve to say why it was that he decided to do An Enemy of the People.
I don't know. I really don't. I think it started only because, you see, I started in New York as a stage actor, and I was on Broadway. Replaced Ben Kazar in Hatful of Rain and was on tour with a national company as an actor. And I looked around town at all the scripts that were being submitted to me, and I didn't think they were very good. I never really had confidence in myself as an actor to ever do anything classical. It was spooky, scary. And I started negotiations actually with Beckett to do Waiting for Godot. That was my first choice. And he turned me down and said that he was very flattered that someone wanted to do it as a film and would love me to do it, but he didn't want to let it go. I read several classics. I'm not a learned person. I don't read. I've never read Stanislavski or Boleslavsky. I don't know very much about art or music except things that I like. And I've never read classics in my life. So I sat down and I read Ibsen. I thought it was wonderful. I thought what he said was wonderful. Whether I, as an artist, could deliver it, I wasn't sure. I felt that if you can take someone off of the streets, and I'm 47 years old, but basically, I come from the gutter. So therefore, if someone without the proper training can give an interpretation of something that's classical, that if this country enjoys it, I really don't know that people will like it. I mean, you obviously liked it. Whether people in Butte, Montana will or will not, I don't know. And I don't care. I made this film for myself. I'm sorry, but it's true. And I love it. I love that film. I love everything that everybody contributed. And the actors, the cinematographers, the prop men, everybody, you know, was fooling around in an area that none of us knew anything about, except George Schaefer. So I think that in a sense, I made it because I wanted to try it. The first, for what it said, too, excuse me.
The first time we talked about it, you said, whatever else is true about it, it's pure, which I thought was just a really nice word to use about it.
Yes, we used Arthur Miller's adaptation that was done on Broadway in 1947, and Frederick March played the part that I'm playing now. And I read the play. I thought it was very, very good, and it didn't last very long, and I think it lasted 3 weeks, and it folded. And you see, it's a strange kind of political piece. I'm not a politician, you know, and I was on Nixon's 10 list, and I know nothing about, I mean, I vote, but so, you know, I read it, and I thought, well, the connotations that I see are not political other than what's obviously there. But strangely enough, on Broadway, it flopped, and there was a lot of political pressure on it. But we did keep the original screenplay very honest to what it was by Miller's adaptation, and it is pure Ibsen. There was nothing added. If anything, we perhaps subtracted some of the things that I was being educated about in classics. There were things like "you dastardly fellow," and "I here hurl the ink at you, and may you fall out the window." And it wasn't very good. But things that I read of that era, it seemed as though they always took a long time, and that's why the first part of it is dull, because we had to make a choice of hoop it up or to keep the purity, and things were dull then. People were a little slower, it seems as though, in what they did and what they interpreted. There were master craftsmen. We don't have many master craftsmen anymore. And so I thought it would be nice to leave it that way, and we did.
How were you drawn to Alexander Jacobs, who did the actual screenplay?
That was George. George found him and brought him from his university, and we needed some help on what, you know, how we would do the meat and potatoes, because I'm not a writer, and neither is George. And he was wonderful and did very, very fine work, but it was not basically a screenplay.
I see. Well, and he's not a screenwriter. I mean, he's not that.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. And I think as a novelist or someone who has a responsibility towards the print, because the play is the thing, that's, I think, why it worked in my mind.
Well, you obviously must have gotten involved. You're executive producer, but you must have gotten involved in, I presume, all aspects of it. I mean, the casting was, you must have had a lot to do with the casting, I would presume.
Yes. George and I did it together. It was a joint venture, and we went to New York, and they were wonderful, wonderful actors and actresses, and they were all underground. And Michael Christopher, of course, got the Pulitzer Award. And
the Shadow Box. It's Shadow Box? Yes, I think that's the title.
Yeah. And he's a wonderful actor as well, did Hamlet. And then I think also that at the time, we fooled around with two things that, well, I don't know if you'll find it interesting or not, but I stole as much as I could from Ingmar Bergman to use. And one of the things was to use very low lighting. We used a 29 millimeter lens, which forced us to go very light, very low key lighting. Like, for instance, I think we're using about 30 candle power. Generally speaking, it's about 150. So we were committed to a very honest lens. That's a 29 millimeter, and we only used a 40 millimeter once in the crowd scene in the boat shed. So in that sense, if you do 29, you do honesty. There was no lying there. Once, if you look in somebody's melon by the time they're 25 and you can't tell what's going on their side. So if you can get that lens in, then you can read what's going on. And at that part, I'm personally very proud about what we achieved. And they said we couldn't do it and all of that. Yeah.
One thing about the casting, I thought the girl who played Petra was particularly interesting.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Is she a New York stage actress?
Yes. Everybody. You know, they were all New York people, all very, very learned people about their craft. And I tell you, I studied that script because I don't have a very good mind for memorizing. And I'll tell you, you don't ever want to get out of step with those actors because you're dead, you know.
That's terrific. Now, what about the distribution plan? Is that still open, or what's going to happen?
Well, I had a great deal of opposition doing the film, and they didn't want me to do it, and I can understand why. I'm not sure the film will make any money in its present form. I'd be very surprised if it does. I don't know that people will really care about that. I think that audiences per se, at least I used to, that if a man works very, very hard and he comes home, he wants to watch Archie Bunker. I know I do. If I work hard, I want to escapism. If people do like the film, then I think we should present a good surroundings for the audience. I feel that it should go 1 to maybe 2 theaters in the United States, possibly 3, and I think that it's a very intimate film, and it should be a 400-seat house. The problem that we have is because of the 29 millimeter lens. I know when we first started running it, and for editing purposes, I kept asking the projections to rack over because we kept getting fuzzy. And what it was, it's so terribly critical that it's got to be a small house. The sound has got to be just right. Because, I mean, we made mistakes, but we slaved over this. And if you have a film that's slow, then you must treat it, I think, with great respect for the audience and create an atmosphere where they'll be able to listen and to enjoy. And I believe that would say a 400-seat house, yes. 3 theaters. And I would, to carry on though, but to go on to different colleges in the United States, I would like to take the film and see if I can get some education. You know, because I was standing outside and I get nervous and I walk away, you know, because you guys are hard audiences no matter what. And yet, it was hot in here and it was stuffy, and people were laughing and, you know, enjoying this thing. And this is, for me, is an experience. So I would like to take it and see what happens with it, and keep it away from the public temporarily. I think I'm scared to show it to them. You're a captivated audience. You can't leave.
That's great. Okay, well, let's get some questions from the floor. So, who wants to begin over here?
Well, since this film was made because you wanted to be made for yourself,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Okay, you made this film and you made it so that because you wanted to make it, right? But what kind of response? Let's say it's a good response. Are you looking for? Let's say it's presented in contemporary cities or whatever, let's say Los Angeles or San Francisco or whatever. What kind of response are you looking for from the people? I mean,
I don't know. I really don't. I don't know who our audience is. That's the thing. We've snuck at 3 separate places, and I've been asked to stay away because I caused such a commotion with the projection and all. But we really don't know who our audience is. Strangely enough, we ran it in Indianapolis with the James Bond film, right next to it, and you know that's suicide. It really is. They loved it. You know, they wouldn't allow me to come near it. You know, the studio just said stay away. But from what I understand, it was received very well. I don't know what I want from an audience. I would like perhaps for them to see what I see as a filmmaker. That's what I would like. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. I would like somebody, you know, to perk up and see some of the things that Ibsen wrote. And I feel like a cherry in the sense that I haven't been with Ibsen that long. But what I have learned from him is very, very good.
Okay. Yes, down in front.
I'd like to start out by saying that I felt the treatment of the stage play, of Ibsen's play, done on film was excellent. I've seen a lot of theater done on film, and it just doesn't come off well. But the timing seemed to be good, and the lighting and the music really worked well to make the stage story a film story.
Thank you.
But what I'd really like to know is how was the conflict between you as executive producer and actor? How did you work out those roles, and what were the conflicts and what were the compromises that you had to make in those 2 roles?
Wearing the 2 hats?
Right.
Okay. Take off my jacket.
That's a good idea.
I'm used to it because I've had the training for it. I've been producing films for years, but I've never wanted to take screen credit because I didn't really need it. I thought it'd be better to buy another head who was smarter than I was. Now you need to do it in order to be able to handle the film through exhibitors. I don't have that problem. It gets tiring and I have to take care of myself physically, but I was in charge. If there was any mistakes, I pay for them. So I had no opposition, and I'm not a compromiser. So I found myself constantly pushing and pushing and pushing, and was getting great support from my co-workers. The only people that gave me difficulty were the buck people, and you can't blame them. They want to see me crash and bang and shoot and kill. And there's nothing wrong with that either. I can't knock that because the car I'm driving out here was paid for because of that. But this film was an unknown commodity, you know, and my opposition was easily handled. You know, the times I got tired was that creating the right atmosphere for our actors and for the creative people, because it's such a soft piece, you know, like not letting anybody anywhere. Thank you. For you?
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Great.
I'll join you.
Yeah.
Up to Navy. Not much opposition that way. It wasn't too big a problem, I don't think. You know, it's just extra work. If you can go do your job as an actor, like I did the Towering Inferno, and I gave my conception to the producer and the director going in, and Paul did the same thing, and the other actors on the film. Now, it was so wonderful to finish a day's work and go home. But if you're involved in it production-wise, you do have a responsibility towards the production. It doesn't wait for you, and it costs about $5,000 an hour, $10,000 an hour to run that camera. So that part gets physically exhausting.
Go over here. Jeff, yes.
Yes. With regards to this film and Easy Rider, that was first a success in Europe. Do you think that might happen with this film? Because it's being an American art film, I don't want to really label it that, but because Easy Rider went in Venice, it did real well in Europe first.
Such a comparison. What you're asking is something that I've been thinking about and doing my homework. I don't know the answer to it because they may resent it. They may resent an American doing it because I got a twang in my voice and this and that, and I'm not a classical actor, and I'm a little frightened of that. I don't know. And people in Europe and in the Orient love to see Steve McQUEEN doing an action film. They may be very disappointed. What I was frightened of primarily, and the second thing I'd like to ask you, what a strange comparison between that and Easy Rider. Because
versus an American who's an actor and you know, it's kind of, at the time, it was an unusual film.
I'm very flattered, but I don't think we'll be as successful as that film, because I think at the time that was a very, I mean, he was capping something up then, and and it's a very action film, and you know, we don't have that.
But it may be a festival film. I mean,
festival film, yes,
yeah.
But doing
maybe American festivals rather than European, possibly.
I think I'll have to feel my way. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there.
As has already been pointed out, this is a radical departure from your previous portrayals as a superficial, kind of physical roles that you've had in the past. Can we see
that one, right?
Is this going to be a... Bear with me.
That's
is this going to be a permanent transition? Can we look more for some more cerebral, more in-depth roles from Steve McQUEEN in the future? Are you going to go back? Or are you going to go back to paying for a few more cars? Because I really liked. I never respected you before as an actor until what I saw today on that screen. No, I'm being serious now. That's the first time I really thought that you were doing something other than shooting or killing.
Okay. And I respect what you're saying.
I hope you keep it up. I hope you keep it up.
I didn't hear the last
He said, I
word.
hope you keep it up.
Well, I'm not sure that I really would like to attempt another classic. It's too hard. And you see, let me say this, I'm very much into life right now. I might not be around much longer as an actor. I want to get into producing, but there's a lot out there. I'm living now. And the moment I became a movie star, being an actor is a gas. Being a movie star is a pain in the ass. And when that happens, you stop your personal growth. And that's the thing that I suffered from, you know. And I took a truck and went up to Montana. I've been all over the United States, you know. And I had my hair very long beard and so forth and so on. And it was wonderful being able to watch scenes that are going on. My conception can only be motorcycles and speed and things like that. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't do it no more. But I have to find a place for me to go for my own personal salvation. Doing a classic was just my payback, okay? And that's it. Now I'm clean. And I've done that. But as far as me moving on myself, I think I'm more into life than cinema. You know,
Terrific. Okay.
Truthfully.
Yeah. All right. There's some questions on the side I thought over there before. Yes, in back, Myra.
I was wondering how you approach this as an actor, seeing as most of your other roles, you know, there was that undercurrent physicality. As a person on the screen, you're very passive, and I just wondered how you approach that to do your work, you know.
I did my work as a professional, and this man was passive, and he was very nonviolent. He knows nothing of violence, and I worked at it. I tried very hard to do my craft, and I do believe a great deal that this picture is based on personal courage that has nothing to do with what courage represents in our society today, and some of the things that I and John Wayne and Clint Eastwood have done. The personal courage of a man who is suddenly, I think, going to find himself right up front. Because the physical thing, I'm not sure it means anything anymore until we get into a flat-ass revolution. But what does mean something is that if the meek is going to inherit the earth, then he's got to find a way to be able to negotiate. And I think somehow it's got to be between having a very, very strong punch and then be kind, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
If this film is a great success, would you consider doing another one like it?
Yes, I'd consider it. It was very, very difficult for me. I have trouble remembering lines, and I worked my buns off, and I was scared all the time, because movie stars can be really good sometimes. The actors and actresses that I were working with are good all the time. So therefore, I was very spoiled in as much as the kind of stuff I've been dealing with, you know. And I don't know. I've been thinking about it. I've been playing around with King Lear. My wife keeps throwing it at me. And I don't know. I don't know if I have the courage to do it or not. I really don't. I don't know.
Did you look at anything besides Waiting for Godot before you got to I mean, other authors besides Ibsen, or mostly?
Yes, The Master Builder, and I also, I thought of doing the Inspector General as a comedy, with one stocking hanging down. I was just frightened that at the time I was very insecure about trying this, and I just didn't want to seem foolish, and I was afraid of being embarrassing, and that one would have really been chancy, and I'm not sure that it would have made any sense, and it was not very well written, I didn't think either.
Well, obviously, George Schaefer has done a lot of classic adaptations for television. Do you see this maybe on television at some point after the theaters? It seems to lend itself very nicely.
I think absolutely it'll be on television, and if the film is not a success and it fails, it'll be on television quicker than. But yes, George, by the way, I think is wonderful, and he's a very dear friend, and he's a very kind man, and he loves actors, and he loves theater, and he loves people who write well, and I'm very fond of him, and I think he's one of the most talented directors around, and it was really a wonderful experience working with George. I learned a great deal from him.
He seems to me to be unflappable. I mean, a very calm kind of guy.
He got angry at me once.
Did he?
Yeah. Yelled at me once. He's wonderful, and he is unflappable in many ways.
Yeah. Okay, yes, in the back.
I'd like to know if you have done any work at all in videotape, and how do you feel about videotape from both sides of the camera, from the producer side and from the actor side? I understand the technique tends to be a little different in acting when you're working on videotape as opposed to film.
I've never worked on videotape. You mean running alongside your 35?
No.
Running a remote?
Expressly for videotape.
I don't know anything about videotape. I've never used it. I know that I've talked to people who have, and it has its limitations, I understand, but it's cheap and it's good to work with, but I don't know that much. 16 blown to 35 is okay, and now, if you don't, it used to be you couldn't go night, because it wouldn't blow up good. Now it does. But video, I don't know. George works with video a lot.
Yes, on the wall.
Yes, did you ever think or consider about putting this film on television as a special?
Putting it on television first, you mean?
No. No, I didn't. I thought about it releasing it foreign first, but I never thought of television. Once you put it on television, it's good in some senses, but it's over very quick. And I think that if something's going to live, and I believe this film, I love this film, and I believe it will live, but the main thing I was shooting for was not to make bucks, but to have something that'll go down that I can be proud of, and something that'll come good, for what I tried to achieve. I'll give you an example, if I may just change the subject for something that I was scared of. I did a film, it was one of my favorite films, didn't make 20 cents, and it was called Junior Bonner. Sam Peckinpah and I made it. I played a rodeo rider, a has-been, And we finished the film, and it was pure, very much the same sense as this film is. It had the rolling tempo of the way things are in cowboy land. And when we finished the film, they were going to open the film up at the Gromish Chinese. And I went to Joe Sugar, who was then the guy who was distributing film for Cinerama. And I went in his office, and I said, look, I think you're making a big mistake by putting this film in this big theater. I said, because people are going to look up and see Steve McQUEEN and Junior Bonner with Sam Peckinpah, and they think that they're going to go see The Magnificent Seven, and it isn't. It's an art film, and it was an art film. And he told me to mind my own business, and okay, so that was it. And the film failed. And I think one of the reasons is because if you can kill a film by selling it wrong, very easily. And there's many, many examples. What I was frightened of with this film, and nobody had any hope for this film. Everybody put it down right up front. And I mean everybody. Now, I'm not talking about our creative people, but the studios, they had no faith in it. They didn't want me to do it. Now they're getting interested because it seems as though audiences that have seen it are interested. But I was frightened that if you saw it up on the marquee and saw Steve McQUEEN, Enemy of the People, I was afraid they were going to see Al Capone with a machine gun, you see, because people in the United States a lot of people do not know who Ibsen is. And there's one of the problems. That's why I think that you, as an actor, if you get in a position to be able to have control, or as a filmmaker, you must carry your project, and if you do end up in production, carry it all the way through to the end. That means you can't give up, you can't let a thing go. And nobody will make the decision for you. Nobody's smarter than you are, unless they are, and then you're going to hire them if you're smart. But the film has to be carried through the distributor and the exhibitor, because that's where your compromise takes place. And there can be, Warren Beatty did Bonnie and Clyde, which was an utter failure. The studio sold it wrong, it went right down the toilet, and he grabbed it, and through his hard work, he brought it back up. And there's several examples. I can't think of them now, but this was all very important, I think.
The Sorcerer?
I'm sorry?
The Sorcerer.
What's that? The Sorcerer, but I'm not sure that...
I didn't see it. That's not doing so well, though.
Bring that back, I don't know. Yes, I'm back in the front. It'll be magic if they do, I'll tell you.
How do you feel about your performance in Papillon with Dustin Hoffman?
What's that? How do you feel about your performance in Papillon with Dustin Hoffman?
I thought it was pretty good. That was I enjoyed that film, and that was a very fine director. I'm sorry, my hearing's very bad, so...
Yes, down here.
What was the music and who did it? It was very impressive.
Well, it was an original. Leonard Rosenman did the music. And he's an old friend of mine from the streets, and we were both busted. And I played a lot of Vivaldi, Zuckerman's Four Seasons, and I love it. That's what I wanted to use for the film. In fact, I brought it in so the actors could listen to it, and I still listen to it, and I loved it. It was too cheerful. Leonard and I got in a little argument, and he wrote something else, and I just think what he wrote was wonderful.
He got an Oscar for adapting the music for Barry Lyndon.
Yeah.
And he got an Oscar this year for I forgot what it was for. Bound for Glory, sure, that's right.
That was the original, though. That was not an adaptation. He didn't do any adaptations there. That was an original.
Yeah, that was an original score, right. All right, let's see. Now, this lady here, yes.
I'm interested in the portrayal of Petra in the movie.
Yeah.
Was it the same as Ibsen's portrayal of Petra, or did you change it, her spunk?
No, there was Eva Le Gallion's version of Ibsen, Ibsen's version of Ibsen, Miller's version of Ibsen, and I've read them all. And I really think that Petra, if you look, most of it was structural complexity that had to do with her personal color as an instrument, which she said it was really fairly flat. But that girl had so much inside, that it was just there up front. And I think she's wonderful. I think she's going to be a very, very important lady in our industry, and I hope so.
On the aisle over there, yes. In the striped shirt.
Yeah, you had about a 2-year layoff between this and Tower and Inferno.
3.
Did you sort of use this layoff as a time to sort of get back in touch with yourself? And,
yeah.
Because you had made a lot of movies, Papillon and that, right after another. And
getting in touch with yourself. Yeah, I love living very, very much. And, it's terribly important for me to get out and hit the trail and see people and do things and get interpretive things that I need as a person. An actor has a very strange situation going today, a movie star, and you got to be very, very careful with it. And getting out there and maybe a beard or whatever so I can get around pretty good. Although my wife made me cut it all off, was wonderful for me. It gave me a chance to get back to things that I cared very, very much for that was taken away from me. Because to have your identification and your obscurity is the ultimate. But if you have heat on you all the time, constantly, and people want me to live up to the things they see on the screen, I can't do that, I'll die. And so, I have a right to be a human being. And because I think we don't have a king or queen in this country, they need people to idolize, and I understand that. But they also need somebody to twist the key. And if you go into a cowboy bar and it's drunk and it's Saturday night in Montana, somebody's liable to want to operate on your head. And that generally comes out of just this. And that's very, very bad. So if you can get back somehow with the people and find out what your pecking order is there, then I think that leaves you cool.